Hi, want to learn how to make one of these? I think you can do it. Let me show you how.
All right, first let's take a closer look at that pendant and I'll show you what ingredients we're using. I'm using some 22 gauge copper wire, 8mm gemstone beads, 10mm jump rings, and a 6mm jump ring right in the middle. First, we're going to start by making this top bail. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is take a piece of wire about 7 inches long. This is a 22 gauge copper enamel coated wire. And like I said, we're going to make that top bail. So we're going to start with our round nose pliers, about an inch and a quarter off of the edge, and rotate around and make a teardrop at the top. We're going to switch to our flat nose, pinch it right where those connections meet, and bend up to the same edge that the other wire was coming from, and switch back to our round nose and go around the loop again. So what you're getting is that teardrop shape, but instead of just one wire, you got 2 wires going around in a circle. Now we're going to make the little spring coil here that's just below that top. So you're going to start with the short wire, not the long wire, and you're going to wrap it around the bottom of that teardrop shape. So I pinch this part really hard and I anchor that up so it's underneath that round bottom there. And then we're going to go around and around and around this piece of wire so that it looks like a spring. So I'm really pinching tight on this one and then wrapping this around in a circle several times, just so we have kind of what I call the neck of the pendant. If it's easier, you can grab it with your flat nose so that you can pull on it nice and hard and keep layering it around. You don't want them going on top of each other. You want it just nice side by side by side. If you start having all the wires kind of split apart, you can grab your flat nose and give it a little pinch. Once you have it the length that you like, if there's extra wire here still, you can just simply cut it off. So that's what we're going to do. I'm good with that. We're going to grab our snips, snip off the extra. Now there is a little pointy part here that kind of catches. You're going to want to make sure you get your flat nose and just tap that down. You don't want to leave that up because you don't want something scratchy that's going to catch on, like, say, a piece of fabric. All right, so that is now the top of our pendant. If it's a little wonky looking, don't worry, we can straighten that out at the end, or if you like, you can straighten it out a little bit now. And once we get all the beads on, it's going to move around a little bit, so I wouldn't worry too much about the exact shape. Now we're going to grab our beads. So you will need 7 beads of your choice. I'm using 8mm beads. Depending on the size of bead that you choose, it is going to kind of skew with the dimensions. So if you want to make this exactly, I would stick with 8mm. I'm using gemstone beads, so I have a mixture of colored hematite, agate. This one is a lava, and amethyst. For the mixture I'm choosing today is just the amethyst, agate, and hematite. So we're going to pop those on. So we have 7 beads that we're using. You can use 6, but I found it was a little bit too loose with 6 beads, that the jump rings kind of moved around a lot. I thought it looked better with the 7 beads. So we're going to get all 7 on there. Okay, so 7 beads. Now we're going to wrap it into that circle shape. So we're going to bend the top a little bit into an L and carry it around in a circle. Doesn't have to be exact. Like I said, we can kind of fiddle with it afterwards to make it a little straighter. You know, if this gets a little bent, it's not the end of the world. So you're going to get in here, and so now there is the neck that we created. You're going to cross over top of that while we're kind of holding it nice and snug. You want to make sure there's not really much for gaps left. You're going to get the wire right in that bottom part of the neck. And if you can tuck it underneath, great. If not, just get it as low as you can on that coil here and start wrapping it around again. So you're going to wrap it just side by side, just like we did the first time, except now we're going over top of the part that we already did. Go all the way up until you reach the top. Get in there again with those snips and trim it off. And then once again, make sure we push down that little pokey guy. You don't want that snagging or poking you while you wear it. So tuck that in. And this is where, like I said, where things start getting moving around. So you can adjust it or wait till the end. And that is your frame. Okay, so now we're going to install those jump rings. You're going to start with that 6mm jump ring. And what you want to do is straighten it out. So I don't know if you can see here, if I zoom in, that it's not level with each other. There's kind of like a gap where they're catchable. For this jump ring, you want to just straighten that out. So grab them with 2 flat nose pliers and move back and forth just a little bit so that it is straight and even with each other. So that one we're not actually going to open, we're just going to hook everything into that one. So we're going to take our first 10mm jump ring, open it, so make sure you're opening side to side. Do not unpeel the circle of your jump ring. And we're going to hook it on there. So start with the top, because I find the top is just kind of wonky. And get that in there. And hook on that little one. So this part gets a little finicky to hold on to with your fingers, but with a little practice you'll get kind of your groove of what's working. Like I said, I find this top one the most annoying because it doesn't fully sit properly with the neck. Get back in there with your 2 flat nose pliers, and you're just going to want to keep going side to side until it sits perfectly level with each other, and keep adjusting. So there is our first ring. You may have to kind of like really pull it down to get it beside there, but that's the start of it. So now we're going to just keep installing these around in a loop. So once again, open that jump ring, get it around your beads. I usually find it easier just to keep it in my pliers as opposed to taking it on and off. And now it's kind of like playing Go Fish to get that middle ring. It takes a little bit of finagling to get it in the right spot. If somebody has a better method for getting that hooked on, please let me know, but my current method is to just keep trying to grab at it as you go. It does get a little easier once it's like kind of locked more in the middle. And just keep going around in a circle. So just a note here, if your jump rings wind up with a gap in between them, so not side to side, but physically between them, what you can do is grab both sides and push. So I'm pushing this way as I'm moving it, and that's going to close the gap. So I'm kind of pushing in as I pull, and then you can kind of go on either side back and forth, and that's going to help close up that gap. Okay, on to the last one. It is slightly easier if you hook through the loop first, actually, and then bring it up to the top to close it up. That last one gets a little tricky just because you have so much in the way. Try and do it more in the middle of the pendant as opposed to right at the beads, just because you don't have a grip with your pliers right beside the beads. So you'll have to kind of fiddle with your own grip, and I can see that this one is not straight, so we're going to go back and fix that. So you don't want your jump rings to have these kind of like jogs like this, because like I said, that's just asking for it to be snagged and pulled on something. So you want them all nice and flush as possible. And there we go, that's the main design. Now we're just going to tweak it a little bit. So if your top kind of got bent up in the process, now's the time when you can kind of straighten that out. And the last thing we're going to do is open up these top tines. I usually use my round nose pliers and kind of pop it in between there just to straighten them out. And that gives you just a nice even top for putting your chain through.
Thanks for joining me to make this super cute pendant. If you want more jewelry tutorials like this or information on rocks and crystals, we do that too. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we got more stuff coming.